This is Cotswold District Council Live. Another episode of Cotswold District Council Live. I am Councillor Joe Harris, your host today, leader of Cotswold District Council, and I'm joined by friends and colleagues who I'll introduce in just a minute. Cotswold District Council Live is your opportunity to learn all about what your local council is doing, ask us questions and help shape the future of our district. Today, we're going to be talking about the path out of lockdown, the roadmap we've been hearing so much about, our new crowdfunding initiative to help fund local causes and events, and we'll also be taking your questions live. So if you do have a question on anything we're talking about today, or indeed anything else, just place it in the comments section below. As always, a big thank you to the Barn Theatre here in Cirencester for hosting us, a fantastic facility, and I know everybody here at the Barn is looking forward to getting out of lockdown so they can start putting on shows again and showcasing the very best of local talent. As is customary, I want to say a massive thank you to all of our NHS staff, our key workers, our council workers, everybody that is helping to keep society functioning and look after people on this, the anniversary of the lockdown beginning. It's been a very long year, but I have to say, it does feel like it's gone very quickly indeed. So let's start with that, coming out of lockdown. We got very excited when we heard the Prime Minister's plans to lift lockdown restrictions and gradually ease them. And I know we all can't wait for things like holidays and just really to socialise with each other, see our friends and family. But what does the road look like? So I'm thrilled to say I'm joined at the minute by Paul James, who is Cotswold District Council's Economic Development Officer, and also Caroline Woodward, who is Cotswold District Council's COVID Support Officer. Good afternoon to both of you, Paul and Caroline.
Good afternoon, Joe.
So, Paul, let's start with you then. I think you've probably nearly been in post a year, haven't you? And so you've been with Cotswold District Council all the way through lockdown. Tell us about the last year. Just give us a bit of an overview about what it's been like, Paul.
Well, I've been with the council now for about 8 months, just over. So
it feels like a lot longer, Paul.
But I've really enjoyed it. But I suppose from the point of view of an employee, it's a strange time to join a new organisation when you're not able to come into the office every day like you're used to, and to meet the people that you're working with, other than through a computer screen for most of the time. But it's also been clearly a very challenging time for our businesses, and we've been doing what we can to support them through very difficult times, through a lot of that period when a lot of business just haven't been able to trade in the way that they normally would do. So I'm sure that lots of businesses are looking forward to the easing of those restrictions, being able to do what they do best again, and trade and serve their customers.
So, Paul, we'll come back to you in a sec and talk about businesses reopening in particular. But Caroline, you're one of our COVID support officers, so you really have been on the front line, haven't you? What's it been like out there? Yes. You've been in post now for a good few months. What's it been like out there? Are people adhering to restrictions on the whole?
Yes. Most of them are around our area, especially the businesses. We've been out and visited a lot of businesses in the last few months, giving them the support, advice when they've had issues. But on the whole, all the Cotswold businesses are adhering to what it is, what's going on, should be, and they're looking forward to coming out of it.
Brilliant. That's great to hear. So, Paul, tell us a little bit about what's happening behind the scenes at CDC to help support businesses reopening.
Yeah, we've got a number of different initiatives underway, and I can tell you about a few of them. But for quite a few months now, we've been working with the tech company Maybe to help businesses improve their digital presence, to use social media to increase sales. So where businesses haven't been able to sell in the traditional way through shops, or just footfall has been reduced because of the restrictions that have been in place. Some businesses have done really well in moving to online sales. and that's kept a lot of them going. So what Maybe is all about is learning from the best and kind of interacting on a place basis, so everybody benefits from it, and there can be a real buzz in social media terms about the town that they're in. So there have been a number of webinars. The first one today specifically for businesses in Cotswold District, and they're taking place in a week's time and a week after that as well. So any businesses who are interested in how they can improve their social media presence would be well advised to take part in that. And then tomorrow we've got another webinar specifically aimed at the hospitality sector, and this is the first of a series of 4 webinars taking place, one each week, to help them to reopen safely and successfully, so making sure they can trade profitably with restrictions still in place and make the most as those restrictions are eased over the coming weeks and months. And then one other thing I just want to mention to start with is we've got what we're calling business advisors. So we've appointed a company through the government's Reopening the High Street Safely Fund to go effectively door to door, whether that's virtually rather than in person at the moment, but door to door to businesses in all of our towns, to make sure they're getting the help and support that they need, and where they find that they need extra support, those business advisors will either help them directly where they can or signpost them to the most appropriate place. So really taking a proactive role to make sure that businesses have got the support they need.
Brilliant. And I know the work with Maybe, you were mentioning businesses there that have benefited. I noticed there was an amazing statistic, was there? One business in Stow-on-the-Wold that had done, hundreds of times better than they would usually do as a result of the support, which is great news and testament to Paul, all of you and your team, your hard work. Caroline, we're all aware of the scenes in a lot of our it tends to be the tourist hotspots in the Cotswolds. I'm thinking Bourton on the Water, Byberry, these sorts of places. We all know about the issues with footfall we've had there. Your team have been sort of making secure patrols of areas with high visitor numbers. Do you just want to tell us a bit about that? Because it's very much not about policing, is it? But, trying to encourage good behaviour.
Yeah, we go out, we talk mainly to the businesses and say to them, how do you control your queues? We give them signage, making sure that anything, they need or advise, we advise them on. At the moment, we've been quieter, but we have... coming up, they've got 2 new members of staff coming onto the team who will be in high vis. They're known as COVID, I can never get this right, recovery assistants, and they will be going around the hotspots, Bourton on the Water. You won't be able to miss them because they're going to have a car that says what they are. So they'll be around to help people. Businesses, and we've been out this week to Bourton talking to the cafes, and we're saying to them, give us a shout if you need anything that, things are in plans. So that's what we're mainly doing at the moment.
Brilliant. Thank you, Caroline. We've also got Rob Weaver on the call, who is our Chief Executive here at Cotswold District Council. And Rob, I know a real priority for you, certainly at a senior management level, has been focusing on Bourton on the Water and other places like Byberry and how we can support those communities, because we all remember the scenes last summer. I mean, it was quite extraordinary, wasn't it? The huge numbers of people descending en masse. So I understand there are going to be sort of things like increased litter collection and empty of bins. And tell us about, there's been a bit of I know the politicians have been labelling it a tourist tax in Bourton on the Water, but yeah, a bit of a levy on parking fees. Do you want to tell us a little bit about that and the plans around Bourton on the Water?
Yeah, thanks, Joe, and afternoon, everybody. And you're right, what we're trying to do behind the scenes is make sure we've got a proactive and a joined-up approach, working with Caroline, working with Paul, but also working with a whole bunch of other staff to make sure we've got a joined-up approach to try and put in place a plan for the likes of Byberry and Bourton on the Water. So you're right, what we're looking at, and we've got Beth Bourton here, who's the MD of Ubico. Beth and I have been having some conversations around what additional litter picks might look like in Bourton on the Water, how we get additional bins. We've been working very closely with the County Council and highways around parking and trying to minimise nuisance parking, where we see people arriving, just dumping their car in front of somebody's drive and going going off into the town centre. And you're right, Joe, that the tourism tax is going to really be a way of us being able to feed money back into the local community in areas that they would like to see that money spent on. So we've finished the survey, and again, most viewers will probably know we undertook a detailed survey to ascertain exactly how that money should be spent, and we're currently in the process of trawling through that information and analysing the results. And really, in summary, what we're going to be looking to do there is say, how can we support the parish councils in terms of some of the things they're already doing? So, for example, we know there's always a clean-up of the village greens after a busy weekend. That costs the parish council quite a bit to do, and it may be that we can look to utilise some of the tourism tax to help subsidise that process. It might be that we've got some money that we can spend around additional traffic mitigation measures, etc., etc. So we're hoping to bring a report to Cabinet in April that will set out what we're looking to do as part of that tourism tax to essentially try and future-proof the locals' lives in relation to putting some money from tourists back into the local community to make Bolton a better place.
Brilliant. Thanks, Rob. I'm going to give the final word on this to Paul. Paul, what's the sort of message you want to give to businesses as we start to reopen? What's the key message from the District Council as we reopen?
Well, the key message, as far as I see, is that we are here to help you. We're doing everything that we can to make sure that reopening is safe and successful. As well, we're going to be there supporting with the right messages as well, because I do appreciate that for consumers the messages are quite complicated with dates, and there still isn't absolute certainty when things will happen, because it just depends on the data going forward. But absolutely, the message is that we're here to help you, and if there's anything that you feel we can do, please do get in touch with us.
Brilliant. Thanks, Paul. And yeah, I want to reiterate that as well. Do get in touch with the District Council. We're here to help. We might not be able to solve every problem that every business owner or resident has, but we can certainly help point you in the right direction. And we will, of course, do what we can. And if you have any ideas of how you think the District Council might be able to help, then please do get in touch with Paul, with Rob and our team at the District Council. Right, for our next segment, we've got an important message from Councillor Jenny Ford on keeping our communities safe.
Hi, I'm Jenny Ford, Cabinet Member for Health and Wellbeing at Cotswold District Council. Here in the Cotswolds, we are serious about ending domestic abuse and sexual violence against not just women and girls, but indeed our entire society. We are committed to supporting survivors and fighting against abuse and sexual exploitation to ensure that all allegations of intimidation, harassment, stalking and assault are taken seriously. Our multi-agency Cotswold Community Safety Partnership is dedicated to reducing both crime and the fear of crime, working with our partners to promote ideas that every crime matters and every victim is heard. Every member of that partnership, including the police, the Envirocrime officers, Young Gloucestershire and GDAS, has a collective role to play to make our communities safer places to live, work and visit. Domestic abuse, violence and harassment can happen to anyone. It can often be difficult for victims to recognise it as abuse. It's also vital that we stop thinking it doesn't happen here in the Cotswolds. We know it does. We must all recognise our contribution to keeping everyone in our communities safe, in the everyday, with what we do, what we say and how we treat one another. The pandemic has taught us a lot about the resilience of our residents, their kindnesses, their talents and their generosity. We want to build on this success to ensure all our neighbourhoods are safe and enjoyable places to live. We want to make the Cotswolds a connected district with united communities, where we know and can rely on our neighbours, where parents take responsibility for their children and where people feel confident to challenge bad behaviour, knowing they will be supported by their neighbours, police and local leaders. The Cotswolds is a very safe area, but if you are feeling worried about travelling alone following the recent events in London, you can download the Hollyguard app for free on your phone. It adds an extra layer of protection when you are travelling, commuting or just going about town. Find out more about the app at hollygazard.org/Hollyguard. Stay safe.
Jenny, thanks for that video. Really, really important issue. And as you said in that video, the recent events, surrounding the tragic murder of Sarah Everard in London, clearly put personal safety, back at the top of the agenda. But I think, Jenny, you make the point, don't you? This isn't just about keeping women safe, is it? It's a more general point.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you, Joe, for drawing attention to that. Absolutely. I've felt very strongly about this, that this isn't just about keeping women safe or women keeping themselves safe. In fact, this is about all of us thinking about how we treat one another in the everyday and calling out and challenging bad behaviour. And I think it's really important that we do that. And one of the reasons that there is no reason for us to have such a high level of domestic abuse and harassment and stalking and issues like that in this area is that we have really good, strong communities, and we really need to be using those to call out and challenge bad behaviour. And I've actually got a really good piece of news. Actually, strangely, we're very pleased to see that in a community safety partnership meeting I had this morning, that the number of people accessing GDAS, the Gloucestershire Domestic Abuse Support Service, for support in domestic abuse and harassment cases is at a record high in the last couple of weeks. And I think that is a really good sign, because I think that's directly because people are feeling they can talk about it, they can discuss the issue with people, they can let people know that they will be supported if they come forward and access support. So we're really, really pleased to see those numbers going up. It's the one area where we would like to see the crime numbers actually rise, because it means that people are reporting and accessing that support. And as we always, I really like the quote, the Martin Luther King quote, that says, in the end, we will remember not the words of our enemies, but the silence of our friends. And I think it's really, really important that we take responsibility for our role in this, whether you're male or female.
Thanks, Jenny. Really important message there. Next up then, we'll be taking a look at an exciting new crowdfunding initiative, Crowdfund Cotswold. Well, exciting stuff there. I'm thrilled to say we are joined by Caitlin Hicks, who is Partnerships Director at Space Hive, which hosts our crowdfunding initiative. So, Caitlin, welcome.
Hello, really, really good to be here, and really excited to launch this new partnership.
Brilliant. So obviously we saw the video there. Really, really exciting stuff. And I have to say we've got quite a high-tech sound system here at the Barn Theatre, and the bass on that was pretty impressive. But the scheme is impressive as well. Talk to us a little bit more about Space Hive and how it works, how community crowdfunding works.
Yes, no, I'm glad you liked the video. It gave me a flashback to being in a nightclub, and I look forward to that in the future. But for now, really excited to launch the new programme. So Crowdfund Cotswold is a programme that's dedicated to everyone in the Cotswolds who might want to put forward a local project idea. So Space Hive is a crowdfunding platform, as you've just seen, and we are all about providing a powerful springboard for ideas that help make communities happy, proud and prosperous. And it's fair to say that we've all seen what community means to all of us over this past year. Space Hive have had a 500% increase in the number of projects that have been created by people across the UK. So for Crowdfund Cotswold, this means that it's going to be as easy as possible for you to upload your project to the platform and pitch to funds available from the council that can be pledged directly to your project idea. And it's also going to make it easy for you to share your project directly with your community and hopefully tap into additional funds from friends, family, neighbours, potentially even local businesses too. And we really want to encourage everyone to get involved. So the minimum pledge is £2. So it's all about everyone chipping in what they can to help bring the project ideas to life that they want to see happen in their area. And I suppose the main thing to say is today marks exactly 1 month until the deadline to apply. So if people do want to get involved, they can head on over to spacehive.com and then create their project on the platform. By being in the Cotswold area, you'll be automatically matched to the relevant funds. And from there, you can pitch to the funds on the platform and start crowdfunding. And those that are successful could get up to £10,000 towards their project. And if eligible for both funds that are on the platform, up to £20,000 as well. So that pretty much covers the basics, I think.
Brilliant. Well, Caitlin, very comprehensive there. So let's unpack it slightly then. So we've got one project I've seen on the website at the minute, which is Sapperton Village Hall, a brilliant little village.
Yes! Exclamation mark.
Yeah. Absolutely. We love Sapperton. So talk us through it then. So Sapperton, I guess the Village Hall trustees or whoever, they've registered an interest. Unpack a little bit more what we might see if we were, let's say I'm a resident in Sapperton. Explain it to me. Let's unpack it. Let's use a really local example.
Yeah, sure. So I think for anyone who's familiar with, fundraising in its simplest form, it's all about going out there, raising awareness of the project they want to make happen, and then encouraging people to chip in. What the Space Hive platform does through the programme is that it gives everyone their own unique page where they can point people to, and then they can go on and click the bright yellow back this project button and then make a pledge directly to the project. And so the project will set its campaign target, and once that target is hit, potentially with hundreds of backers getting behind it, then the project can go ahead and take place. So it really is about everyone coming together to make this stuff happen and providing one place where all the support, whether it be funding or perhaps people want to offer their time volunteering to help deliver the project, can be captured. And so ultimately we should see lots of successful projects across the Cotswolds, and it's great to see one on there already.
Fantastic. Jenny, this has very much been your baby. I think from the moment I became the leader, you were badgering me, and I dismissed you at first, and then you pestered away, and then we got there, didn't we? So talk to us about this from the council's perspective, then, Jenny. So we've got a couple of funds, haven't we, that we can use. So talk to us. Where might we get involved, and how do we decide?
Yeah, so this is not new for us in terms of, we've always had funds where we support community activities across the Cotswolds, but it's been fair to say that it's quite a traditional old school way of going about things. It relies on a lot of form filling and, quite a bureaucratic process and not particularly well publicised or accessible. And we just wanted to, we've learned loads from our residents in this pandemic, and we know that they know best about what their neighbourhoods need and want. And Joe, you and I, our inboxes are always full, aren't we, of people saying, why don't you do this, or why don't you build this, or why can't we do this in our area? So people are just, they're brimming with ideas. We've had hundreds of people come forward with, potential project ideas since we've launched this. So it's basically just a really accessible way of getting support, not just from us, but from the whole community, because we know that things are much more likely to be successful if everybody's on your side and is working with you. I've raised some money in the past myself, and you know what it's like when you're trying to raise money for something. The bulk of the donkey work just falls on one or two key people that just have to kind of keep it driving. And I think this is just a way of getting a wider group of people involved and behind you, and a real momentum and pace, because you raise the bulk of your money in the first few weeks. Everybody knows that. So it's just a great way of, turbocharging that, I think, and really supporting our residents, because they do have brilliant ideas, and we just want to make those possible. Well, we're not here to stop them. We're there to enable them to be able to carry out, make their dreams a reality.
Brilliant. And I think, we saw in that video, didn't we? The giant slide, I think, was in Park Street in Bristol. Fantastic. I want one of those in Tetbury, I think. So yeah. come on, Tetbury. Get in touch. We want to fund a big old slide in Tetbury, and I'm sure residents would as well. Caitlin, just before you go then, can you just give us some examples? I mentioned the slide in Bristol. Can you give us some sort of examples of schemes that the Space Hive platform has been able to fund, and the figures involved? No.
Yeah, absolutely. So our most ambitious project ever was £250,000 to renovate the seafront in Brighton. But we've also had, really small projects, anything from £500 to host a small community gathering. So, as a helpful ballpark figure, the average Space Hive project is £12,000. But obviously you'll be able to tap into additional funds potentially from the council too. So really, my main advice is, if people have an idea, we would really encourage you to share it with the team. You get additional support through the Space Hive team as part of this partnership. So we'd really encourage you to get in touch. We can help you to, shape up your project, upload it to the platform, and then potentially explore together what you might be able to unlock from the crowd that you build. So yeah, anything from building a bridge to the Crystal Palace dinosaurs, which are a sort of local treasure in South London, to painting a mural on a wall. It may well be that one of we had over 1,500 successful projects on the platform who've raised over 20 million to date. So if you have an idea, we may be able to match you up with someone across the country who's done something similar. But I'm sure that people in the Cotswolds have also got completely original ideas that we haven't seen before as well. So I don't want to restrict your creativity and innovation by any means. And the main thing is, don't be shy. No idea is too small, too large, or too silly. We just really want to get people coming forward with their own ideas. And of course, over the past year, we've seen some unbelievable projects in response to the crisis. And I've never ceased to be blown away by what we have being put forward on the platform.
Caitlin, thank you so much. So there you go, folks. You heard it here first. If your village hall has got leaky pipes, if you want an inflatables fight, if you want a giant slide through your local town or village, get in touch. Space Hive is here to help. We look forward to backing lots and lots of schemes and raising lots and lots of money. Caitlin, thank you very much for joining us. So for our final segment today, we're going to be talking about the council's new civic pride agenda. One of the things that residents frequently contact me about is the state of our communities, whether that's potholes, which we know is a big issue, or the tatty state of our sort of lampposts and street signs, for example. The District Council is launching the Civic Pride Agenda, as we're calling it, which seeks to take action on that, to
try and tidy up our communities, but also get agencies working together, whether that's the County Council for the state of our roads, the District Council on things like street signs. We're here in Cirencester today with one of our new street signs, or whether that's in partnership with groups like our civic societies here in Cirencester, or perhaps up in Stow-on-the-Wold in our communities. So you'll be seeing a lot over the next few months about the Civic Pride agenda. We want you to take part in it, and the aim is really to clean and tidy up the Cotswolds. It's a beautiful place to live, work and visit, but we know it could be so much better.
As chairman of the Civic Society here in Cirencester, I'm delighted that the council has agreed to improve the civic pride all over the Cotswolds.
Cotswolds is a beautiful area, and I'm so pleased that the District Council is really committed to its civic pride agenda to help make the best of our area, tidy up our towns. Things like the all new beautiful road signs help a lot.
So yeah, there's a bit of an introduction to our Civic Pride agenda. I'm thrilled to say for this segment I'm joined by Beth Boughton, who is Managing Director of Yubico, and of course I've still got Rob Weaver on the line, who is Cotswold District Council's Chief Executive Officer, which I think is your full job title, isn't it, Rob? Beth, so I'll tell you what, before we go in and jump into Civic Pride and everything that entails, tell us a bit about Yubico, because you do a lot, don't you? You do everything from collecting the bins to manicuring the lawns.
We do, yes. Thank you very much for inviting me along today. It's a pleasure to be here. We do, yes. In the Cotswolds, we collect the waste and recycling, empty the recycling bins in the car parks that are around the place. We do some grounds maintenance bits and pieces. We manage the cemeteries, and we do street cleaning, litter bin emptying, sweeping, also installation of the litter bins, and I think, as you saw in that video, installation of street signs and things like that as well. So a whole range of frontline sort of environmental services are delivered by Yubico in our partnership with the council.
Brilliant. Thank you, Beth. An amazing year for Yubico, really, with everything happening with the pandemic. I know you and your operatives have been so busy, so we really appreciate all the work that you've been doing. So yeah, Civic Pride, it's a bit of a, I was about to use a rude word then, but it is a bit of a funny title, isn't it? Because it is a little bit of unpacking. But I think from my point of view, as the leader of the council, and it's fair to say this is a little bit my baby. I've always got residents contact me saying, oh, you know, that bench is looking a bit sad, the lamppost is peeling, all the paint's falling off, there are weeds and bits, you know, clogging up our curbs, and just things like the roads not being cleaned regularly, so the drains block up, so it's very functional in that respect. Rob, why don't you come in there, unpack that a little bit more for us. What are we looking at with our Civic Pride agenda? You're the one that's got to implement this. I give you all the ideas and all the stress of having to try and implement these things. Talk to us about what we are going to be doing.
Yeah, that's right, Joe. I try and make your ideas a reality and the council's ideas a reality.
Good man.
Yeah, the thing with Civic Pride, you're right. It's the little things. It's really easy, isn't it, to think that it's the big ticket items that everybody worries about. But actually, it's not. It's the small things. It's as you said, if you walk past a lamppost all day, every day that's damaged, or you walk past a road sign that's dirty or covered in algae, or you walk past a verge that's overgrown, it gives the feeling that the place is uncared for and unloved. And what we're trying to do around the Civic Pride initiative is get people to have pride in their own areas and to pick out how the council can support them and facilitate a much better approach to the whole Civic Pride agenda. So if we can work with Yubico and proactively identify areas that we know every 6 months are going to get really overgrown, or they're going to get badly littered because they're alongside a dual carriageway or whatever it may be, we can work with Yubico to say, let's not wait until somebody gets in touch and says there's a problem in an area. Let's do something about it proactively. And that's quite a good example, actually. So Beth and I have had some conversations around where are the hot spots across the district and how do we put in place a plan to make sure we're dealing with those proactively on a regular basis to make sure that it always looks good. And once it looks good, we can then look at other things like how do we do some wildflower planting in some of those areas? How do we improve some of our town squares and our town centres? So the whole Civic Pride initiative really is as broad and as long as we want it to be, and it's around how we improve the environment for everybody in a proactive way that means there's a feel-good factor whenever you're driving into the Cotswolds or visiting the Cotswolds or coming here on holiday or even just working here every day. You've got a sense of pride in your area because it looks clean and tidy and up together. So yeah, that it's really easy to say. The difficulty is going to be how we put all this into plan, into action, but that's very much what we're trying to do, Joe.
Brilliant. And I think it's probably one of those areas, isn't it, as austerity has bitten over the last 10 years, it is those smaller things, you know, there's more proactive services that have suffered. We're in a position now where we think we can do something about that and start to try and get that incremental change to be a little bit more proactive. But of course, it's going to be reliant on our fantastic waste contractors. I should probably call you, rather than waste contractors, that's a bit one-dimensional, isn't it, Beth? I'd probably say environmental contractors, shouldn't I? So Beth, we're going to be coming to you and saying, right, we need you to do this, and I'm sure we'll get an invoice from you at some point, but how are you going to meet the challenge then? How are you guys going to be more proactive and help us realise these ambitions?
I think the thing that we benefit at Yubico is our staff. So our staff are out there every day. They, lots of them live in the Cotswolds. They are in their own communities working. They care for their communities. And as we've seen in the past year, their dedication to continuing to provide the services, despite the really tricky circumstances they've been working in, has been phenomenal. So I think really the key to this is we're out there every day. We are seeing what's happening. We are eyes and ears on the ground. We know that if our work extends to this point, but if we went that little bit further, we might be able to deliver an improvement back. We need to be bringing that feedback round and closing that loop, as Rob just said, about talking to each other about what might we be able to proactively do ahead of it becoming a problem, and try to make that routine. So really, I think it's about very much our local knowledge, our local expertise. It's about developing what we currently do, even just a little bit, because we currently do a huge amount of this work already, and we do it very well. Our staff are very dedicated to it. But if there's a little bit more that we can do that can help, it's about sort of closing that loop, bringing that information back, having that discussion about how we weave that in.
Brilliant, thank you, Beth. I know Paul James is still on the line. Paul, I'm going to put you on standby just for a second, because I know you were a previous leader of Gloucester City Council, and I want to talk very quickly about some of the regeneration stuff that you did in Gloucester, if I may. Before I do that, though, I'm going to bring Rob back in. And Rob, there's a real opportunity here to help improve biodiversity, because I don't want the residents to get the impression that we're going to suddenly turn up and be mowing every grass verge to within an inch of its life. And there's a real opportunity to do things like wildflower planting and just generally be kinder to the environment. But that will take a multi-agency approach, working with our colleagues. Do you want to just comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely, Joe. I mean, we've seen a real reduction in natural habitats over the last few years. I mean, as you know, we've declared an ecological emergency, which is essentially how do we put back in some of the stuff that's been taken out by previous generations. And you're right, we can work very closely with the wildlife trusts, with Yubico, but also what we want to do as part of the Civic Pride initiative is be working with those community and voluntary groups. So we know we've got lots of residents who are passionate about wildlife, passionate about the natural environment. And we want, as part of the Civic Pride agenda, to be hearing from those guys. And if they've got projects that they want to be looking to do in their local areas, then we can say, OK, how can we provide some manpower or some support to make those local initiatives work? But when you look at the amount of green space that we've lost, I mean, we are a concrete jungle. It's had impacts on rainwater runoff. It's had impacts on flooding, as we've seen, and we need to try and, the phrase I guess everyone's using at the moment is rewild some of these areas. So actually there's a benefit to us if we're planting up some of our verges with wildflower mixes to attract more insects and biodiversity, but it's also useful for Beth and her team because it means they don't have to cut it quite so often because it's a little bit more sustainable. So there's a win-win there in terms of being able to use some of the money that might have been used to cut verges, which are being maintained in a better way, for some of the other initiatives that we want to roll out. So we're also making that Cotswold pound go a bit further as well.
Brilliant, thank you, Rob. Paul, I'm going to come to you if I may, because you've got a lot of experience. I guess it is civic pride, isn't it? You know, your community over in Gloucester, really trying to improve the public realm and just generally improve the sense of place. So, Paul, do you just want to offer a bit of a comment on that and, the benefits that, that really investing in civic pride, had for Gloucester?
Yeah, absolutely. Because a lot of the time that the focus can be on the big multi-million-pound regeneration schemes. But as we know, those things can take years to deliver. But it's really important as well to get the little things right, and the things that you spoke about, making sure that the public realm is in a good condition, the benches are repaired and things are painted and cleaned and look good. Is really important in terms of making people feel good about their place, and if people feel good about their place, they tend to respect it more, and that has the benefit, and it just makes people feel better with all the benefits that brings for mental health and everything else.
Brilliant, thank you, Paul. So, folks, if there is a bit like the shout out I gave on the Space Life initiative, if there is a wonky sign in your community, if your local street sign has seen better days, or you're just fed up with the weeds and all sorts growing up there, let us know. Get in touch with me, get in touch with your local ward councillor. I've already had Councillor Jenny Ford badgering me about the pavements in Badgington, so we'll make sure that's on the agenda. Jenny, we'll make sure. So yeah, Civic Pride, please do get in touch and keep an eye out for some of the initiatives that we're coming to. Just before we end then, and we will have to end shortly, I'm told we've got a very important meeting that needs to be live streamed over Facebook after, which is it a licensing subcommittee, isn't it, Ollie? So yeah, if licensing's your bag, then do stay tuned, because you can watch councillors talking about it. A few questions then we had in advance of this meeting. So the first one is from Kathy in Cirencester, in Stratton, just north of Cirencester. Can we have a street light in the Snicket from Tinglesfield to Gloucester Road in Stratton? The footpath is very uneven and dangerous and pitch black at night time. Someone broke their foot in the dark one night walking down there. Please take a look. Well, Kathy, I know Stratton very well. I grew up there. I know exactly where you are talking about. So I think what we'll do, we will pass that on to the county council and our local county councillors to look into for you. But I'm sure that's something that we can look at facilitating with our colleagues at the county council. Next up, we've got one from Jonas in Morstan in Marsh. What is being done to manage pavements and roads in market towns and villages when lockdown ends? Last time there was very little done, and many residents are concerned that tourist levels will be higher than last year. I'm going to look to either Paul or Rob on this one. Do either of you want to talk about that? Should we bring in Rob? If we bring in you very quickly, and then we'll see if Paul has anything to add.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I mean, again, as we said before, coming out of lockdown is really important. We've got to manage that correctly. And what we'll be looking to do is continue to work with Paul and Caroline and their team to identify where we need to continue to put measures in place as we start coming out of lockdown, to make sure that people that have got used to some of those social distancing measures, physical measures around pavements and footpaths, where we may have taken out some parking bays to allow there to be more space to navigate around narrow corners or what have you, that we're not necessarily in a real hurry to take all of those out, because if there's advantages to those, then we can start to phase those out accordingly. So I guess the key message is we're going to be looking really carefully at what we take out and when we take it out, rather than having a big bang approach, because I think that's very much going to help people get back to normality, and working with our county council colleagues to phase some of those measures out, rather than, as I say, ripping them all out from day one and expecting things to be back to normal.
Paul, do you have anything to add?
I think just very briefly, and clearly we have to take our guidance from the government and the scientists on this, but I think we've got to be prepared for social distancing to be with us for a while yet. And I think Rob's right, we're not going to, in a big bang way, undo the measures that we've put in place so far. I think it would need to be a gradual process, and even in some cases we may need to reinforce some of those measures and messages as well. But we'll make sure when we do that we consult with town councils and anyone else appropriate that we need to.
Brilliant. Thank you very much, Paul. This is from Sandra in Cirencester via email. What do CDC and other local authorities why do CDC and other local authorities think it's acceptable to raise council tax after the year everyone has had due to the pandemic? Perhaps you should take a better look at your budgets and ambitions before you lump the bill onto the taxpayers. Well, Sandra, it's a really, really good point, and I don't think any councillor on any council likes having to put up council tax, because we know, it falls on you as taxpayers to pick up the bill. But I think what I'd say is, if you look at the past 10 years, it's been 10 years of austerity. our funding here at Cotswold District Council, that government funding that makes up the vast bulk of our budget, has been reduced by nearly 50% over the last 10 years or so. And we've done a lot, I don't think there's anything left to cut. This is the problem. We've had we share our staff with 3 other councils largely, so we're all sharing resources and pooling. We've done everything we try and can to make those big savings that are really going to make the difference. But I want to make absolutely clear, we are committed to rebuilding the council's finances. We've got a plan to do that, and ultimately we want to rebuild those finances so we can invest in the district in all sorts of those exciting schemes that you've heard about, such as Civic Pride, so we can really try and improve the Cotswolds for the better. Final question then. This is from Louise in Chipping Campden. Question to me: what are you most looking forward to from April the 12th? Well, Louise, if you're a regular watcher, you'll have seen my hair getting bigger and bigger and bigger. I cannot wait to have a haircut at my trusty barber here in the Cotswolds. So I think that is a good place to wrap up on. Please share the show with other people if you enjoyed the content. The more you share, the more people reach this content and they can find out what we are up to. We're on Twitter, we're on Facebook, we're on Instagram, we're on LinkedIn, and we're even on YouTube. So we're well catered for there. We're going to be on a hiatus. There are local elections coming up on Thursday, May the 6th. So make sure that A, you're registered to vote, and B, I think crucially, this year of all years, if you can use a postal vote, apply for one, because we want to keep social contact to a minimum, even as we emerge out of lockdown. So we will be back at some point in May. In the meantime, thank you to everybody for watching. We will see you in a few months.
Spring has well and truly sprung, hasn't it? And it is a perfect time to get out into the garden. There's so much that you can get started at this time of year. One of the things that you can do is start home composting. It's really easy, and I've been composting now for a year, and it's been a game changer. Not only do we put less into recycling, but it's amazing to think that all of that goodness is going to be brilliant to be added to the borders very, very soon. So home composting is a great thing to get started. Another thing that you can do at this time of year, and it isn't too late, is you can still get hold of, from the garden centre, some lovely bulbs and pot them up. Tulips, for example, look gorgeous in pots. And it's a really cost-effective, beautiful way to get some spring colour in your garden. It's also the perfect time to start sowing. So whether you fancy growing your own this year or you fancy some summer colour in your garden, it's the perfect time to get seed sowing, and all you need is a sunny windowsill to get going. Indeed, if you have already been sowing and you've got some young plants on the go, it's absolutely the perfect time to get them out into your cold frame so that they can harden off for later in April.